My name is Nick. I'm 32, and by all outward appearances, I was living an ordinary life. I had a pretty good job, full stack at a small but stable IT company. A house in the suburbs, mortgage almost closed. No luxuries, but stability, which I loved. I also had a best friend. Tim. Tim and I had met in college. Freshman year, dorm roommate. He was the complete opposite of me, charismatic, loud, partying, coffee and liquor. I was more of a quiet introvert, a fan of black coffee and quiet evenings with TV series. And here's the paradox, we've become like brothers. We went through fire, water and the first session together. After graduation we didn't separate, we worked in the same city, rented an apartment together, and then, a month apart, we bought houses in the same neighborhood, literally across the street from each other. It looked like a plot from some sitcom. Two old friends, neighbors, the eternal jokes about borrowing a lawnmower, weekend barbecues, hanging out on the porch. I was single, so was he. Then I got married, briefly, a couple years, we separated peacefully. And Tim remained a perpetual bachelor, new girls every 3 or 4 months, always some kind of action. I trusted him. 100%. So much so that he knew my passwords. I once showed him an encryption of my date of birth and my dog's name. He knew where my garage keys, my car keys, my house keys were. We shared folders in the cloud, with movies, photos, yes, even some scans of documents. He was closer than family. And now, after all this, I'm sitting in an empty house, with a notice from the bank threatening to repossess my house for late payments that I first heard about only yesterday. And it's all because of Tim. But it didn't start with the debt. Or the bank. It started with one door. An open door. It was an ordinary Monday. I got home from work at 7 p.m. It was raining, my left shoe was sweating, and all I could think about was getting it all off and lying under a blanket with a pizza and a TV show. But as I approached the house, my heart skipped a beat, the front door was ajar. I froze at first. Maybe I forgot to lock it. But I always check. Always. I've been so paranoid since I was a kid. I entered cautiously. The house was a mess. A mess. Not a burglary, no. But like someone was looking for something. Papers out of a drawer, toolbox open. The sideboard was ajar. TV standing. But the box with my papers and cash, about $8,000, just in case, was empty. I was shocked. I called the police, filed a report. They told me that there was no break-in, no traces, maybe someone I know went in. Who else knows where the key is? The first name that popped into my head was, of course, Tim. But I quickly dismissed it. Tim wouldn't do that. A couple days later, I went over to his place. He was standing in the kitchen, slicing a lemon. He had a pack of cigarettes on his desk, Camel Activate Ice Blue. They're my cigarettes. I've been smoking them since university, and they're rare in our town. I stared at the packet. He noticed the stare and said, "Oh, these? Your favorite, huh?" I saw them in a stall, thought I'd give them a try. Shit, to be honest. I smiled, but I felt a twinge inside. I had those cigarettes at home. In the same box with the money in it. I remembered them. I'd taken a carton on purpose. I left, and all the way home, I had the feeling that something was wrong. But it's Tim. I'd trust him with my life. I'd give him my spare key. A week later, another blow. I get a call from the salon. "Mr. Fraser. We're checking on your auto loan application. Your BMW payment fell through last week." "I'm sorry, what BMW?" "A 2023 X5. You leased it 2 months ago from our dealership on South. We're calling because the bank hasn't received the payment, and the car's already in default." I almost dropped the phone. I didn't take the car. I didn't do any leasing. I asked for a copy of the contract. 2 days later the papers came, a copy of my passport, my address, my signature, almost like mine. Except that I was on a business trip on the day when I supposedly executed the lease. I went to the police. I filed a fraud report. Said someone had used my paperwork. But here's the funny thing, neither my computer nor my phone had been hacked. So someone was actually using copies that were probably taken from my house. And that's when it started to dawn on me. Tim knew where I kept my documents. He'd seen where my passport was, he'd seen me show him where I hid old certificates. He knew when I was on a business trip. I started digging. I checked my email. There were strange login attempts from an address I had once registered with when I was a student. Back then, Tim and I shared a Google Drive for studying. I remembered, we had shared access to that account. And suddenly it hit me. I went to that Google Drive. And there, right in front of me, were scans of my passport, my residence card, even my tax form, which I had once saved, temporarily, to send to the bank. All labeled Nick_docs. Date last opened, 2 weeks ago. And guess who was the last person to log into the account? Timothy.harris1991@gmail.com. That's when I realized. My best friend, used my ID, took out a lease on me, and he was probably in my house. He stole the money. Hacked into my Google Drive. Settled debts. He knew I trusted him. Knew I had no reason to doubt him. And he decided to use that. While I sat there with a cup of coffee and a soap opera, he dug me a hole. And now I'm standing on the edge of it. After I found his entrance to the old Google Drive, I couldn't sleep well for a couple more days. I kept looking out the window. It felt like I was living inside the movie and someone was just pulling the strings and I didn't even realize how deep I'd gone. But the worst part was the guilt. Guilt that I'd given him access to everything. That I kept scans of documents in the cloud that he had access to. That I'd given him a spare key. That I said, if you need anything, come on in, you're like a brother. The next day, I went to the bank. I wanted to check all my accounts, my loans, anything that was registered to me. They gave me a list. And that's when I realized the BMW was just a warm-up. I had 2 microloan applications on me, $5,000 each. Both approved. One was past due. The other not yet. I was shocked. The signatures were almost mine again. Phone numbers are fake. My address. I went back to the police. They've already opened a separate case. But you know how it works, we'll look into it, we'll send a summons, the investigator will get in touch. So far, nothing. In the meantime, I began to notice strange behavior in Tim himself. One evening I saw him outside the store. He was loading groceries into the trunk of his car. Only it was the same black BMW X5 that was leased in my name. I froze. He didn't see me. I was across the street, in the car. He had a cap, glasses, but I recognized his gait. I recognized his jacket, I gave it to him for his birthday last year. He opened the trunk, put the bags in, and I saw, there was a girl in the car. Young, blonde, with a bright pink hoodie. She was laughing. They kissed, and he got behind the wheel. I pulled out my phone and took a video. It was evidence. Straightforward. No chance. I thought my insides were gonna explode. I mean. I loved this man like a brother. I started following. Yeah, I became that dude who follows a car 10 meters away with his headlights off. Going to fake accounts, checking out where he's been, who he's been hanging out with. Looked for photos of a BMW. Turns out it wasn't that hard. On one of his stories, he didn't block me, by the way, I just didn't see it, I saw him sitting in a cafe with the same blonde and signed, my ride or die smiling face with horns kiss mark. The same BMW in the background. And that's when I snapped. I texted him. Just briefly. Where did you get the BMW? He read it. He didn't reply. Half an hour passed. Then came the answer. Bro, it's not what you think. I called. He texted me back. He texted. Let me explain. Not by text. Can I meet you? We met at a coffee shop. I got there first. He showed up 15 minutes late, like always. He sat across from me, pretending nothing was going on. I just put a photo on the table, a printout of him in the BMW with that girl. And a screenshot from my bank showing a $5,000 loan made on the day I was away. He stared at the papers for about 10 seconds. Then he took a deep breath. "Nick, listen. I really didn't mean to hurt you. It's just that I needed to cut down a little bit. I was fucked up. Debts, you have no idea. I didn't say anything." He continued. "I thought, I'll make it up, I'll pay you back, you won't even notice. I'll pay you back. I just had to hold on a little longer." Everything started to fall apart after that story about my job, when I got screwed out of my paycheck. I asked. "Tim. You took out a car on me, 2 loans, broke into my house, stole my cash, copied my documents, and you also forged my signature." He stopped talking. And then he let out a line I still hear in my dreams. "Brother, isn't that what friends do?" It was like something clicked in my head. He really didn't realize how deeply he'd betrayed me. Or he did, and he was just trying to play the "I didn't mean it" card. I got up, I didn't say anything, I just walked out. The next day, I went into action. Completely changed all passwords, blocked access to the cloud, closed old bank accounts, made new ones. Changed the locks on the house. Asked a friend of mine, an IT guy, to help me with security. We put cameras, put in an alarm system, even an IP logger. And most importantly, I hired a private lawyer who helped me file a report not just as a fraud victim, but as a criminal case against a specific person. Tim. A week later, the notice came: because of my BMW debts and outstanding loans, my property may be seized. Even though I wasn't the one who brokered those deals. And you know who could help me in this situation? Tim. Only he wasn't answering his cell phone. And then a couple days later, I found out he'd run away. He just took the money out of his account, cut off all social media, and disappeared. And now a real struggle awaited me, with banks, with creditors, with the law, and with myself. After Tim disappeared, I didn't know where to put myself. I woke up with anxiety in my chest and went to sleep with it. The feeling of being not just betrayed, but turned inside out, it doesn't go away. It's like mold growing into the walls of your mind. I lost my money. I lost my peace. But worst of all, I lost the man I thought was my brother. But at some point, something clicked. I didn't want to be a victim anymore. I wanted him to feel what I felt. So I decided, there would be revenge. Not screaming, not hysterical. Cold. Thoughtful. Point by point. First, I decided to find out where he was. And that's when one of those friends who seem to be just acquaintances, but in fact are more reliable than family, came to my aid. Nate, a former sysadmin, now a cyber detective. He has his own methods, and, let's just say, he doesn't always play by the rules. I gave him everything I had: Tim's email, his old accounts, IP addresses from the logs I'd collected through my router. Yes, I put a logger on my home internet after the hack. Nate left, saying, "Give me 72 hours. On the second 24 hours, he sent. Your friend is in Austin, Texas. He's renting a 1-bedroom on Airbnb. Paying on a card in the name of Justin Harris. Same date of birth as Tim. Pseudonym. Classic. Bingo. The next step is money." I started pulling up all the transfers that went in my name and cross-checking them against security cameras, bank cameras, checks. And I found some things. For example, he took out a loan from an MFI in a neighboring district. I never went there. Security footage of a man wearing a cap, a mask, but height, gait, Tim. I gave it to the lawyer. He started putting it into evidence. At the same time, I filed lawsuits with banks and lending institutions to declare the transactions fraudulent. They resisted. Naturally, no one wants to lose money. But when I added photos of Tim in the BMW, camera footage, and even screenshots of his stories with the caption, "My beast on wheels," they started to deflate. One bank has already cancelled the debt. The other is pending. A small victory. But it wasn't enough. I wanted him to experience for himself what it was like to be alone. I contacted his ex-girlfriend, the blonde. I found her on Instagram. She wasn't hiding much. I wrote from a fake, offered her coffee, saying, you know Tim Harris, he screwed us out of money, we're looking for victims. She was cold at first. Then she wrote. Yeah, he's a freak. Ran off, left me with rent arrears. Said he had everything covered, but he disappeared. Don't write again. But that was enough. I gave it to the lawyer to add to the file. The most interesting thing started later. Nate writes again. He changed Airbnb. But, see, I looked at where he logged in via Wi-Fi. And he has his old Steam account active. He's in Austin playing CS::GO almost every day. Nicknames, Madman TX. He wanted to keep a low profile, but he used the same email account he used at uni. Guess what email my old Netflix account was registered to that I suddenly stopped having access to? Yeah, the same one. He didn't even bother to change the login. He was still living my life. And with that, he gave me a weapon. I restored access to Netflix, Hulu, Steam and Spotify. The night he logged in, I just kicked him out of the account. Changed passwords one by one. He tried logging in, got a notification saying, logging in from a new device, confirmation required. I could see him trying to regain access. I just sat on the couch and updated the session list. It feels like you're slowly tightening the screws. Little steps. But these were my resources, my life, and he no longer had access to them. Then the calls came. First strange, unfamiliar numbers. Then text messages. Bro, can we talk? This has gone too far. I know you're mad. But we were friends. You really want to put me away? Over a couple $1,000. I'll pay it all back. I swear. Just don't do it. I didn't respond to any of it. I just added the number to the file. The final quart of this part of the story was a call from the police. The local Austin guys are out on it. No arrest yet, but a summons. He was required to appear for questioning in a financial fraud case, as the material my lawyer passed along was corroborated by Texas entities. He showed up. And you know what he said in the report? I didn't know Nick would take it so seriously. That's the whole point. He thought I'd swallow it. That I'd suffer in silence. That I wouldn't fight back. That I was a safe target. He was wrong. When I got confirmation that Tim had come in for his interview in Austin after all, I fell asleep peacefully for the first time in a long time. Just passed out on the couch with my clothes on, not even turning off the light. There was a sense of, not victory, no. But the kind of control I'd been missing. And then the real craziness started. My lawyer told me that Tim had given a statement saying that I'd arranged the whole thing. Yeah. He literally said that we had an agreement that I let him use my information to defraud the banks, take out loans, and then split the profits. Like we had a conspiracy, but when I got scared, I started blaming it on him. When I heard that, I almost had coffee coming out of my nose. He really thought he could pull this shit and get away with it. But he forgot one thing, I've been documenting every move this whole time. Every text message. Every statement. Screenshots of his stories where he bragged about the car. His logins to my Netflix. The cameras at the bank. Everything. My lawyer smiled and said. Let him carry. It makes him vulnerable. And we'll hit him with a pinpoint. The next step was that we officially filed a civil suit. It was no longer repair my credit history, but compensate me for moral and material damages. The amount, $78,000. Tim was apparently shocked. Because a couple days later, I got a call from his lawyer. He had this, husky, oily voice. The kind of voice you hear in the movies when you say, let's make a deal. Mr. Frazier, he said. We'd like to offer you a pre-trial agreement. My client agrees to admit certain facts if you drop the lawsuit. I asked. What exactly is he willing to admit? That he did use some of your data, without your knowledge. But he won't accept charges of grand theft or fraud. And the restitution? He's willing to return the $8,000 in cash. Within 60 days. We'll put it in writing. I laughed. It was a fraud for 3 times that amount, and he wants to get off with an 8 and a small confession. No, I said. Let the court decide. And add to the pile that he tried to buy my silence. A couple weeks later came the blow back. They put a temporary lien on my house. Technically, because of a property dispute. Like, checking to see if the property was part of a fraudulent scheme. It was a move by Tim's lawyers to drag out the process, add pressure. But the thing is that I had insurance, and everything was documented, payments, bank transactions, confirmation that the mortgage was paid only by me, from my account. And that's when I got ahead of myself. Remember that blonde girl in the car with him? Turns out her name is Haley, and she works at a local diner outside Austin. Through a couple fake accounts, I managed to get her to get in touch with my lawyer. I didn't text her anything directly, it was clean. Haley agreed to talk. No cameras. Just on the record. She told me what? Tim introduced himself as a crypto investor. He spent money left and right all the time, but he didn't work anywhere. He said he had a friend who he used to make the arrangements. And most importantly, I showed a correspondence where he called me a dumb sucker who won't even understand what's going on. The lawyer glowed. That was pure gold. Next move, the media. I didn't want to do it right away. But a friend suggested, try to leak the story to the local publishers. No names. Just as a case study. So I did. On both Reddit and Facebook groups, a post appeared with the headline, "My best friend stole my identity, made loans on me, and now says I'm the one who authorized it." The story exploded. People wrote, "Sue me to the fullest, how can you do that, what if you had kids?" It went viral. The comments even found two other people who once knew Tim and had missing money. A lawyer contacted them. One testified, the other refused, but sent correspondence. The picture was complete. And then Tim showed up. Texted me from a different number. "Bro, let's stop everything. I get it. I'm sorry. Just tell me what you need. I'll disappear. I'll stay out of your life. Let me go." I looked at that text with a surprising calmness. When you're betrayed, you first want to scream, then retaliate, then forget. And then you just stop feeling. And that's when you become dangerous. I texted him. "I'll see you in court. Or in the paper. Or better yet, both." The trial was a week away. It seemed like after everything that had happened, I should have felt angry. Hate. Fear. But there was something else. Emptiness. It was as if everything inside had burned away, burned to a crisp. All that was left was silence and an even, almost cold feeling, I must finish this. Not for justice. Not for money. But to make sure it wasn't all for nothing. The trial was in Austin. I flew in the night before, slept in a hotel. I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, even though my alarm was set for 7 o'clock. You know, there are mornings when you don't worry. You just wait. Like the exam you've been studying for 6 months. The room was cool. It smelled of coffee, paper, and some old wood. I sat on my right. My lawyer next to me, clear, confident. We didn't talk. Tim came in a little later. I didn't recognize him right away. Gray jacket, pale, slouchy. Without his usual, brotherly, energy. He sat across from me. Never once looked in my direction. The meeting lasted more than 3 hours. They went over everything from fake loans to data theft. My lawyer put up camera footage, screenshots, bank records. Then Haley's testimony. Then his BMW stories. The judge, a woman in her 50s, looked at it all with an icy face. Then Tim was given the floor. He stood up, sighed. He said he was in a difficult situation, that debts were choking him, that he meant no harm. And then he said, "I made a mistake. But I'm not a criminal. I'm just a man who went the wrong way." And he added, "I apologize to Nick. If I could turn back time." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, it was just so familiar. He always had a way of saying the right thing. And still do shit. Then the judge looked at me. She asked, "Mr. Frazier, do you have anything to add?" I stood up. My heart was pounding in my temples. My hands were calm. Yes, Your Honor. Pause. This man knew everything about me. My schedule, my habits, my passwords, access to my house. He knew I trusted him. He didn't just steal money. He stole a part of me. I was silent for a second. Then I continued. And the worst part wasn't what he did. It's how he did it. Gently. Methodically. No yelling. He did it in secret, knowing I wouldn't notice. Because I trusted him. I'm not here for compensation. I'm here because I want no one else to be his next target. I sat down. The judge nodded, and the room went quiet again. The verdict was announced half an hour later. Guilty. Financial fraud, forgery, identity theft. 2 years probation, 6 months supervised release, $15,000 fine, $43,000 in restitution to me over 12 months. If he violates, he's going down for real. My lawyer whispered it. It's a win. A clean one. I nodded. But inside I felt, not joy. Just closure. Like when you put a period in a long, hard letter, and you stare at that point for a long time. Tim came up to me just outside the hall. In the lobby. People were walking by. He was standing there, holding his bag. He looked pathetic. Nick. I looked at him silently. I'm sorry. I really am. I don't know how it all came to this. I blew it. I mean, we were like brothers. I didn't answer right away. I just stared. And then he said. No, Tim. We were like brothers. Only in this story, you're the brother who's hiding the knife behind his back. He lowered his eyes. Said quietly. I hope someday you can forgive me. And he walked away. And you know what's weird? In that moment, I didn't care. 3 months went by. I came home. Ran the paperwork with the banks, cleaned up his credit history, put in extra security measures, new locks, panic button, changed all the passwords. Every payment he makes goes through a law firm. No words. No emotion. I'm sleeping well again. Almost. But here's the weird thing. A couple weeks after the trial, I got an envelope. No return address. The handwriting is familiar. Inside was a photograph. An old one. Me and Tim, about 10 years ago. I'm wearing a stupid Batman t-shirt, he's got ketchup on his chin. We're laughing, we've each got a bottle of beer, and there's a bonfire in the background. On the back is a short caption. It was a good day. Sorry it ended this way. I didn't tear up the photo. I didn't burn it. I put it in a folder. The same folder where the whole case was kept. Let it stay there. A reminder. That betrayal isn't always a scream. Sometimes it's just a quiet whisper from the person you thought was closest to you.